I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars, and it really is unfair.
Musk was watching, of course he was, and he shot back on X, of course, to his 220 million followers. Whatever, he wrote. Keep the EV solar incentive cuts in the bill, even though no oil and gas subsidies are touched, very unfair, but ditch the mountain of disgusting pork in the bill. He went on, in the entire history of civilization, there has never been legislation that is both big and beautiful. Everyone knows this. And then the kicker. Without me, Trump would have lost the election. The Dems would control the House and the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. Trump's response: Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave the White House. It didn't look that way on Friday, when the farewell seemed to be a fond one.
Elon's service to America has been without comparison in modern history.
Now Trump is saying this: the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. And now Musk is musing with a poll whether it's time to set up a new political party. And then, late in the afternoon, the wheels came off. We do not know quite what Musk is alleging with his reference to Jeffrey Epstein. He and Trump were socially acquainted during the 1990s and 2000s. Epstein died in prison in 2019. He was serving time for sexual abuse and the trafficking of minors. Sky News has approached the White House for comment. This is no trivial spat. It is between the most consequential president in American history and the world's richest man. Together, they have massive political and financial clout. We have seen what that looks like when they work together. Working apart against each other, it could be so much more consequential still. And it just got very, very personal.
Well, Mark joins us now live from Washington. Great to have you, Mark. So it's always going to get to this point. So the question now, I guess, is where it goes from here.
Yeah, I mean, this is utterly extraordinary. We knew over the weekend that Elon Musk was unhappy with this big, beautiful bill that Donald Trump, as he describes it, is trying to push through Congress. At that stage, it felt political. You know, it was Elon Musk in line with his beliefs, thinking that this bill will not reduce taxes and will increase the national debt of the country. So it was a political spat between the two of them, and it was kind of what we expected. We know where Elon Musk stands on financial waste. We know what Donald Trump is trying to do on Capitol Hill. It wasn't personal, but over the course of just today, it has spiraled so much. I mean, you know, Kamali, we thought the focus today would be the German Chancellor, or maybe it would be the travel ban that Trump's put in place. Maybe it would be this extraordinary investigation against Joe Biden that Donald Trump has now said will happen. Each of these is a massive story in its own right, and yet this is dominating because, as I said there, it's no trivial spat. These two men are two of the most powerful men in the world, and they are now falling out royally, and it is not political. It is personal. These extraordinary allegations, without any evidence at the moment, that Elon Musk is making about Donald Trump's connections with Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump has been on social media in the last few minutes since those allegations came out with a tweet which appears somewhat de-escalating. He's not going more personal. He's trying to put it back to the political, saying, I don't mind Elon turning against me, but he should have done so months ago. And then he goes on to talk about the spending bill. I'm just here to try and fix a problem I didn't create. I'm paraphrasing, but that's effectively what he says. So he's trying to pull it back, making it more political. Elon Musk is going very, very personal. And he has just, in the past hour or so, retweeted a tweet from someone else who said perhaps Donald Trump should stand aside and Musk and Vance should run the country. Again, paraphrasing, Elon Musk has retweeted that, saying just one word, yes. So this is remarkable. And Kamali, we wait to see how Donald Trump, or indeed his lawyers, respond to these extraordinary and very inflammatory allegations.
And we certainly do. We'll keep an eye on their social media accounts. Mark Stone, for now, in DC, thank you. Now, Russia's ambassador to the UK has accused Britain of direct involvement in Ukrainian attacks on his country. Speaking to Sky News, Andrei Kerlin said large-scale drone strikes on Russia's air force at the weekend must have had outside participation. He's been speaking to my colleague, Yalda Hicking.
An audacious attack, an underwater explosion targets a bridge connecting Russia with Crimea. Vladimir Putin says this is the work of a terrorist organization. And now Russia is pointing the finger of blame right at Britain.
We perfectly know how much London is involved, how deeply British forces are involved in working together with Ukrainian in targeting Crimean Bridge, for instance, targeting other issues, provision of satellite information, not only, but also data that is needed to launch missiles, flight data.
Even more embarrassing for Russia was a meticulously planned operation by the Ukrainian security services, which reportedly destroyed up to a third of Moscow's fleet of bombers.
That is why President Putin called yesterday to President Trump, and they discussed it, the necessity. And our hope that we will get a reaction from London as well. Because I will tell you, such kind of attack involves, of course, provision of very high technology, so-called geospace data, which is only can be done by those who has it in possession, and this is London and Washington.
You describe what happened at the weekend as a serious escalation, and then on the other hand, you say Ukraine is losing this war. Do you and does Moscow view what happened at the weekend as a humiliation?
No. Well, there are some people who are saying that, of course, there should be more precautions taken on about the airfields, and that is correct.
Vladimir Putin is now deciding how to respond. His ambassador had a clear warning. No one wants the worst-case scenario.
How will you respond to this attack? Because President Putin said there will be a response.
Yes, he said this also to President Trump, but it is up to the Ministry of Defense to decide when and how it is going to happen.
Is everything on the table, including nuclear attack?
No, I don't think so. Nuclear attack this is not a type of a conflict which is presupposed a kind of a nuclear attack, but we have different means, and it is not up to me.
So that's the point you're making, that this is further escalating things by Ukraine defending itself?
Yes, actions like that, they are bringing the conflict to a different level of escalation.
Which would mean what?
Which would mean better not to, and better to realize and to remember what we are doing. We have a limited conflict right now, which, of course, has a wider projection on the European security, but limited conflict should stay a limited conflict and not to escalate it, not to try to engulf World War III. That's the worst case scenario that we can imagine.
And what about the push by NATO for members to increase their defense spending to 5% of GDP?
Yeah, it is fantastic, and I like it. It is. Your Minister of Defense has said that they have daily threat from Russia in the sea, in the air, and on the earth. I very much would like to see these threats. What does he mean?
Should Western capitals not be preparing themselves, not be upping their defense spending when Russia is saying, if you continue in this way, this will escalate?
If Europeans decide to spend money for military, as I say, toys or equipment, it is up to them to do it. You shouldn't ask us on it. But as we stated many times, and in our statement of the embassy, we do not represent any threat to Britain at all, neither on the sea, nor in the air, nor on the earth.
No threat to the UK, he says. But with Russia now accusing Britain of direct involvement in Ukrainian attacks on Russia, has Moscow's promise of revenge just taken on an even more alarming dimension?
I'm pleased to say that Yalda joins us now live for more on this. Yalda, great to have you with us. I mean, how did Mr. Cannon seem to you when you put those questions to him? He made some accusations.
Yeah, absolutely, Kamali. As you say, I mean, they're quite extraordinary accusations pointing the finger of blame at Britain for that audacious drone attack that the Ukrainians launched, which took them about 18 months to plan, deep inside Russian territory, some 5,000 kilometers away from Kyiv, as far as Siberia, hitting about 5 air bases and damaging and destroying about a third of their bombers. So this was a brazen attack. And when I put that to the ambassador, he was visibly furious about it, but he remained defiant, and he pushed back and said that they would have to respond, that they would respond, and that it was Ukraine that had now derailed peace talks. But as you say, he pointed the finger of blame at the UK there, and interestingly said it wasn't Washington. They believed that Washington had nothing to do with it. So I wonder, my assessment of it and my takeaway was that he was sending almost a message to the British public that your government is dragging you into this conflict and you will regret it, and that this is a local issue that shouldn't become a bigger, wider global conflict. And he did warn of World War III. So some extraordinary claims made there by the Russian ambassador. I've interviewed him 2 or 3 times over the course of the last year, and I found that his rhetoric, he was upping the ante and pointing the finger of blame on Britain more so than he has in previous times, Kamali.
All right, Yalda, for now, thank you for that. Now, Zia Yusuf has quit as the chairman of Reform UK, saying working to get the party into government was no longer a good use of his time. It follows Ms Yusuf's criticism of Reform's newest MP, Sarah Pochin, after she asked the Prime Minister if he would ban people wearing the burqa. Ms Yusuf said that was dumb of her to ask. His decision to stand down came just hours before counting got underway tonight in a by-election for the Scottish Parliament that Reform hopes to win. Well, let's bring in our political correspondent, Rob Powell, for more on this, joining us from Glasgow. So, Rob, Zia Yusuf has gone. Has he explained why?
Yeah, Zia Yusuf isn't a household name, but he's pretty important in terms of turning Reform into the more slick campaigning machine that they've become in recent months. The multimillionaire former businessman, I think he was pretty important as well in preventing Reform becoming the sort of ragtag operation that can often pop up around Nigel Farage, and certainly has done in the future. And I think that is why this resignation, whilst it probably won't affect the by-election that's going on 10 miles up the road from here, or has been going on today, it is also more important than your usual internal party HQ shuffle. In terms of why he's gone, well, the statement that he's put out said that he simply doesn't think working for a Reform government is a good use of his time anymore. Nigel Farage has said that politics can be high pressure, and Zia has clearly had enough, but added he's a loss to the public life. Behind the scenes, though, there has been tension, and I think that tension bubbled over and came to a head this week when Zia Yusuf criticised directly Reform's newest MP after she called for a ban to the burqa. He called that dumb. That's something that isn't party policy. Now, politically naive, inexperienced are a couple of the things that sources have been saying about that intervention and previous ones from Zia Yusuf this evening. But there is also a long history of people rising to positions of power within operations controlled by Nigel Farage before a very rapid fall from grace. The most recent before Zia Yusuf was, of course, Rupert Lowe, the MP for Great Yarmouth, but there are many more before. And I think that brings you on to what impact this has. Look, I don't think this necessarily shifts the dial in terms of voters. Not necessarily convinced stories like this cut through that much. Reform still have Nigel Farage, they still have their protest message, and I think that matters a lot more. But it is a competent operator removed from the backroom operation. And more broadly, I think it also raises questions about whether Reform can keep the show on the road in terms of a party machine for the next 3 to 4 years, whilst also avoiding bust-ups that might be more existential. I think it also shows us that whilst achieving political success, yes, is about policy and about personality, it's also about the more boring things like discipline. And I think that's probably a lesson that Reform have learnt the hard way today.
Probably is. OK, Rob, for now, in Glasgow, thank you for that. Now, counting is underway in the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse by-election for the Scottish Parliament. Polls closed It's 10 o'clock. So let's bring our Scotland correspondent, Connor Gillies, who's in Hamilton for us. Connor, the count has just begun.
Yeah, good evening, Kamali. This has been a campaign of dirt and smear. Nigel Farage, we just heard about him there. He is saying the Scottish establishment are absolutely terrified at them taking centre stage, the new boys on the block. Nigel Farage telling me earlier on this week that coming second in this by-election tonight would be seen as a victory. One of the polls in recent weeks has suggested his party, Reform, could even be on course to form the official opposition when Scotland goes to the polls in the national election for Holyrood this time next year. What an earthquake that would be. So could tonight be an indicator of that? The other big story clearly is that tussle between Labour and the SNP. A senior source within the SNP tonight saying they are quietly confident of securing this seat, of holding this seat, and what a turnaround in fortunes that would be for John Swinney, whose party were almost obliterated at the general election last year. As for Labour, a source in their camp saying it's far too close to call as the polls close this evening, but they have been on the back foot, clearly bogged down by issues related to the winter fuel payment, and a loss for them tonight, even coming behind Nigel Farage's Reform, would be an absolute humiliation for them and would pile further pressure on the Prime Minister and all of those in Downing Street. Full coverage throughout the night here on Sky News. We're expecting the result in the next 3 to 4 hours, and also you can find us on the Sky News website and app as well.
And you can. All right, Connor, for now, thank you. Now, a 15-year-old boy has been sentenced to 7 years in custody. A 13-year-old girl has been given a youth rehabilitation order of 3 years for killing an elderly man near Leicester. 80-year-old Bim Coley was punched and kicked and racially abused in Braunston last September. Our Midlands correspondent Lisa Dart reports now from Leicestershire Crown Court.
The teenager boy chose to attack my dad, and the girl chose to film him being attacked. They knew what they were doing.
This daughter is haunted that she never heard her father's cries for help. 80-year-old Bim Coley was assaulted by a 14-year-old boy in a park near his home at Braunston Town near Leicester. He was egged on by a 12-year-old girl who laughed as she recorded it. The boy was sentenced to 7 years in custody for Mr. Coley's manslaughter. The girl received a youth rehabilitation order, which includes a curfew and community service.
I feel angry, disappointed that the sentence they have both received today does not, I believe, reflect the severity of the crime they committed. However, I understand the judge has guidelines, but they have taken a life, and as a result, our lives have been changed forever.
The retired businessman regularly took his dog Rocky for a walk. In September last year, he was captured on CCTV doing just that before he was set upon. He was slapped in the face with a shoe, racially abused and punched and kicked. He suffered a broken neck and ribs and died the next day. The girl and the boy, who was wearing a balaclava, instead of helping Bim, ran off. Neither can be identified due to their ages. In court, they were referred to as D1 and D2.
I am sure that you knocked Mr. Coley to the ground and then hit him to the head with your slider as he was on his knees trying to get up. D2 recorded you doing this. I am sure that Mr. Coley did nothing at all to deserve it. What you did was wicked.
The attack lasted for 7.5 minutes. As the pair, now aged 15 and 13, were sentenced, the boy wearing a grey tracksuit and the girl wearing a white blouse and black jumper clasped their hands and looked to the floor. Later, as the girl left court, she hugged the boy's mother. Mr. Coley's family say they feel no sympathy.
Children of that age attacking an old age pensioner. You can see that he's a very gentle, frail man. What was going through their heads?
The family say that the loss of their beloved Bim makes them feel like their hearts have been pulled apart. And all the more difficult for them to understand is that there was no reason for it. Lisa Dowd, Sky News, Leicester.
Now, Benjamin Netanyahu has tonight given the first public acknowledgement of Israel's backing of armed Palestinian groups in Gaza that oppose Hamas. The Prime Minister made the announcement after being accused by a political opponent of arming militia linked to powerful Gazan families.
On the advice of security officials, we have activated clans in Gaza that oppose Hamas. What's wrong with this? This is only good and saves the lives of IDF soldiers. The publication of this only benefits Hamas, but Lieberman doesn't care.
Meanwhile, the private US humanitarian group that's backed by Israel reopened 2 aid distribution centres after closing them following deadly shootings. Israeli troops fired towards people they say had posed a threat. Well, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has said ministers share the same frustrations as protesters about the war in Gaza, which he described as a horror show. He was also asked today if he believes genocide is being committed.
Well, the question of whether it meets the bar for genocide is a question for international courts to weigh up. So whether or not it meets the legal bar, frankly, I'm not qualified to judge. Whether or not we use that term and whether or not the courts make that judgment doesn't alter the fact that we can see with our own eyes that innocent children are dying in great numbers. They are either starving or they are being bombed.
Now, police have finished their latest search in the south of Portugal for evidence related to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann 18 years ago. Police have scoured derelict buildings and shrubland for the past few days in the Algarve, home to the town of Praia da Luz, where the toddler went missing while on holiday with her family back in 2007. Well, Dan Whitehead is there and joins us now. So, Dan, good evening to you. The end of this 3-day search.
Yeah, well, the German authorities, the police from Germany who are in charge of this latest search, actually had 4 days available to them to scour that barren landscape. They actually concluded the search at 5 o'clock this afternoon. We were right in the middle of the search area today. We saw diggers excavating some of the old farm buildings there, and then them using radar equipment to scan and penetrate the ground. After the police left at around 5 o'clock, we got access to some of those buildings. We could see inside. As I say, they're very dilapidated old farm buildings that were there back in 2007 and around half a mile or so away from the property that Christian B, the prime suspect in this case, lived in. Now, he's always denied any involvement in Madeleine's disappearance. He's currently in jail in Germany for an unrelated rape case. But that is the central suspect in the German authorities' investigation, and they were looking for clues over the last 3 days for anything really that would link Christian B or lead to information as to just what happened to that 3-year-old British girl who went missing from Praia da Luz here, around a mile and a half east of where the search site was. Obviously, the data that was gathered from the ground-penetrating radars will be analysed over the next couple of weeks, so we'll have to wait for the outcome from the German authorities as to whether or not there's any important information that's withheld in there. Look, I think we have to read into the fact that they ended the search early, and I think if anything significant was found, there would be still a police presence. We saw 5 German vans carrying around 30 officers leave the site at 5 o'clock. The Portuguese police who were assisting them leave as well, and the tents taken down. The fact there's no police presence on that land anymore, you may well be able to read something into that. I did speak to one police officer who didn't want to speak on camera, and I said, look, has anything of significance been found over the last 3 days? He just said to me, animal bones.
OK, Dan, for now, in Praia da Luz, thank you for that. Now, Serena Wiegmann has announced she will travel to Switzerland next month for the Women's Euros. Remember, England are defending champions. Speaking to our sports correspondent Rob Harris, the Lionesses' boss, said this is a new England.
It's felt the most disruptive of tournament build-ups. Goalkeeper Mary Earps suddenly retiring from England after losing her starting spot. Frank Herbie quitting after rejecting only being on the standby list. And Millie Bright withdrawing to focus on her mental health.
And the experience lost is clear to see here at England's St George's Park base. Between them, Kirby, Bright and Earps have made 218 appearances combined for the Lionesses.
So on the day, Serena Wiegmann settled on her 23 players for the Euros, the manager insisting there is no crisis a month from the title defence beginning.
You've had 3 high-profile players withdrawing. Could all this upheaval be disruptive?
It's sad. Some situations are sad. Other ones is a natural transition of the team. But of course, I always cherish, because I've worked with these players for these last years. I always cherish the moments we had together because we had an incredible journey.
Millie Bright withdrew because of the mental and physical challenges. Does the game need to do more to address the physical and mental toll on players?
I think with the development of the game and the increase of demands for the players, that's what has been addressed, and that's what we have to look at. But it's also exciting because there's more exciting games. The level of the games is increasing domestically, internationally, and also for country with the Nations League. There's more visibility also off the pitch. So of course, life for top footballer. For top female footballer has changed.
But while Bright rests, 6 of her Chelsea treble-winning teammates are going to Switzerland, including forward Lauren James, despite fitness concerns. And captain Leah Williamson, who missed reaching the last World Cup final through injury, is back, among 6 from Arsenal's Champions League winning squad.
I think they all have experience playing at high-level games with a lot of fans. A lot of spectators with TV coverage, with a lot of attention. So I think we were in a very good place, and I'm excited. And yeah, it's a new team, I would say New England, and we're moving forward again. And yeah, I'm confident that we can do something special again.
Additional scrutiny is accepted, even welcomed by Serena Wiegmann, reflecting the growth of women's football and expectation around this team to retain the trophy. Rob Harris, Sky News, Burton-on-Trent.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we're going to take a first look at tomorrow's papers in our press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the political commentator Tim Montgomery and the columnist from the Belfast Telegraph, Alison Morris. Guys, thanks for being with us. Among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Daily Mail. Its headline: Russia blames UK for drone attacks on jets and says it could lead to World War III. We'll be right back.
a secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Welcome back. This is Sky News, and in just a moment, our press preview. A first look at what is on the front pages as they arrive. But first, our top stories. And Elon Musk has claimed Donald Trump appears in files relating to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein as an extraordinary row between the US president and the world's richest man has erupted on social media tonight. Mr. Musk gave no evidence for his claim. Sky News has approached the White House for comment. Russia's ambassador to the UK has accused Britain of direct involvement in Ukrainian attacks on his country. And Zia Yusuf has quit as the chairman of Reform UK, saying working to get the party into government was no longer a good use of his time. Hello there, you are watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making headlines with the political commentator Tim Montgomery and the columnist from the Belfast Telegraph, Alison Morris. Thanks, guys, for being with us. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let us see what's on some of those front pages. We'll start with the Daily Mail, which leads on Sky News' interview with the Russian ambassador, with the headline, Russia blames UK for drone attacks on jets, saying it could lead to World War III. In marked contrast to relations with Elon Musk, the Financial Times hears President Trump and Xi Jinping to pause hostilities and open new trade talks. The Telegraph reports the chairman of Reform UK, Zia Yusuf, has resigned. It comes after one of the party's MPs suggested banning the burqa. The Times leads on migration. Its headline, migration could force reform of rights treaty. The Metro carries reaction from the family of Bim Collier pensioner, whose 15-year-old killer was jailed today. They say, we've never heard like this before. According to the Eye, the government has banned senior executives at 6 of Britain's leading water companies from taking bonuses. That's also the main story for The Guardian. And the Daily Express leads on the 81st anniversary of the D-Day invasion. Its headline, Never Forget Their Sacrifice. Well, as I said, tonight we're joined by Tim Montgomery and Alison Morris. Tim, Alison, thanks both for making time to speak to us.
Quiet evening.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, we haven't got much to talk about. Maybe not. All right, let's get straight on to it then, shall we? And we're going to start with this on the front of the Mail. Alison, not the main story, but that picture there, and the first friend and the president having a very public falling out.
Yeah, what a time to be alive, really, isn't it? I mean, if you did not see this coming, you were not paying attention. Two men with such enormous egos could never have remained friends for this length of time. I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did. But while there is obviously an irony to this, and there is obviously slight humour in the fact that they've fallen out so publicly and that they're doing it so publicly on social media, there is also a serious side to this. I think something like over 170,000 federal employees have lost their jobs as a result of Elon Musk's Doge cuts. And now he has just taken off and is calling for a new political party to be set up. He is attacking Donald Trump, claiming that he's in the Epstein files. Trump is threatening to take away all the billions of pounds of contracts Musk companies receive from the US government. And remember, this is a man who paid, was it $300 million to help get Trump elected in the first place. I think that this shows the rotten corruptness, I think, at the heart of the American system that allows money to buy someone into a position. And then we had the unelected, it's what he was, the unelected president of the United States, Elon Musk, in the White House, having his son in the White House, speaking over the top of the president to reporters, and it's all fallen apart.
It has, very, very public. Tim, what's your sense of it? I mean, Alison's right, it was always going to end. Acrimony, I mean, they sort of separated last week as if they were friends. He gave him a key, the door still seemed open, and then he assaulted him, blew up.
Well, I've just been spending time on WhatsApp this evening, and a friend of mine had just said, who's very sort of in tune with American politics, says that he thinks that probably Elon Musk is the most formidable opponent that Donald Trump has ever faced.
Wow. More so than
someone
Putin
really,
or anyone
more,
else.
in the sense that, you know, we all know he's wealthy. He's been inside the camp over the last few months. He will know where so many bodies are buried. He has one of the most, you know, powerful social media things that are all on our phones. He's already declaring war on Trump tonight, making the allegations that you've already reported. He's talking about setting up another political party in America, potentially. Elon Musk is not going to go away. This is potentially a very serious moment for Donald Trump. And, of course, Donald Trump is not sitting back and not returning fire. He's doing what I agree with Alison, you know, potentially removing the subsidies for Elon Musk companies, including Tesla. We've seen Tesla's shares tumble, the value of Tesla's shares tumble tonight. We've had all these allegations swirling about Elon Musk's sort of drug use. There was those images in the Oval Office last week where he did look spaced out, frankly. Elon Musk will have his own response to that. What, you know, sort of insidery knowledge does Trump have on Musk? It's not going to be a one-way street.
Yeah, I was going to say he may know where the bodies are buried, but that runs both ways.
Yeah.
These are two men who were up to their necks in colluding with each other in terms of what was really lying in their own pockets. I mean, we know that Trump was basically preparing the way to allow Elon Musk. I mean, a lot of time they were playing with the markets. I mean, these people were up to all sorts, and now they've fallen out. And we're going to get to see what exactly was going on because they're not the type to keep that secret, and we can see that already. I mean, it's one of the worst breakups I've ever seen.
Oh, I mean, it's only just begun.
Just started.
And the money is one thing, but as has been pointed out on social media today, Elon Musk was at the Pentagon not long ago. He has been inside the US government, and now he's on the outside, and he's not happy.
Senior federal employees were saying, what is this man doing? He's not elected, he's not security cleared. Why is he here? Why is he laying people off? He was cutting projects that were bringing, you know, life-saving projects, and he was cutting the funds to them, while at the same time, too, directing contracts towards his own companies. I mean, the whole thing was a shambles. I mean, the fact that the US, the voters in the US electorate were allowing this to happen and still supporting this. And as you said, he showed up last week with a black eye, looking dishevelled, clearly twitching. I don't know what is going on with him, but I think that when Donald Trump thanked him for his service and handed him a gold key, which he says, I give these to some of my friends, you could see that things were not going well. Sent on his way with a box with
It was a weird gift to give us. I've never seen one of those before. I mean, it's on the front page of the Telegraph as well, isn't it, with that accusation that Musk has made about Trump being in the Epstein files. We have put that to the White House waiting for a response. He's provided no evidence of that.
Well, obviously we're reviewing the papers, and you know, so the papers are fascinating, but you do kind of wonder what the papers will be in the morning. I said the papers are all still struggling to catch up with this, and some of the headlines we see now, I think they'll be changing, you know.
As a newspaper journalist, I can tell you that our deadlines are usually set in stone, and then something like this happens and the whole front pages have to get ripped up and redone. So in newsrooms everywhere there are people running around waving their hands in the air frantically trying to get this
I'm glad I'm not a print journalist tonight, because there'll be a lot of copy being ripped up.
The money is one thing, the security issue is another thing as well. But what does it tell us about US politics as well? As Alison's been laying out there was sort of an unholy alliance that had been made between these two people. The falling out seems to be because Musk was not happy about this big, beautiful bill. He said it can be big and beautiful, but it can't be both, right? That's an economic, political, you know, it's a decision, isn't it? There are supporters within the Republican Party that must be on Musk's side for this. It's a bit of peril here for the president as well.
Yeah. Well, look, there's all sorts of reasons why Donald Trump won that election last year. And Elon Musk is tonight saying it was partly because of him. You know, the money he put in, the support he gave via X, the X-Twitter platform. That's all true. But it was also because there was disillusionment about Biden's handling of the economy. And yet this big, beautiful bill potentially really inflates the US deficit, which is already very substantial. What happens when you inflate a deficit? You'll fuel inflation. Inflation was the #1 economic complaint of people about Biden. So I'm afraid we're going to potentially see, if Trump starts losing the confidence of the people economically, that is fatal to him. No president will survive that.
You can already see that happening. Trump did win it on economics. And I've spoke to people who were living in America, and here are also, you know, Americans who have said at the time, you know, Biden, there was such disillusionment with the economy. He went obviously hard on it. He was going to go in, and within weeks he was going to change everything. The cost of living crisis, it was all going to be better, and none of that has happened. And in fact, inflation has continued to go up. And we keep talking about the price of eggs in America, but that is what it comes down to.
I was about to say eggs. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, it always comes down to the price of a box of eggs. But
well, Americans obsessed with eggs. I don't understand.
Because it's the basics, you know, it's things that people use to survive.
Scrambled. All right. Well, look. Plenty more to talk about, but there is another big story tonight, which I thought that we were going to be talking about mainly, Tim. And this is on the front of the Telegraph. Yeah. They're describing it as civil war as well. Picture there of Nigel Farage and Zia Yousaf, the now ex-chairman of the party.
Yeah, well, I'm personally really sad about this. Not sure I was pleased when I realised I was going to be on Sky Papers tonight talking about this. I've become a friend of Zia over recent months, and I've been in touch with him tonight, and clearly this is a personal tragedy for him as well. Mm-hmm. He has given so much of his time and energy to turning Reform into a professional, trying to turn Reform into a professional organisation, and I think he was essential to that process. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, he's decided that no longer was...
What did he tell you? Why has he decided? Because he was on the airways just a few days ago defending the party.
The messages that he sent to me tonight are private. I don't think I should divulge them on air, but he's clearly very, very sad. This is not his choice. This is not what he would have wanted. And I think Nigel Farage is very sad about it as well. This is not a falling out between these two men, as far as I can work out. This is Zia Yousaf realising, I think, or feeling that the challenge of modernising Reform was going to be too big a task, right, and perhaps beyond him.
And the catalyst for this, Alison, seems to be this question in the Commons yesterday about the banning of the burqa. Zia Yousaf then responds to that, saying it was a dumb thing to ask. There is then something of a pardon on social media when he's tweeted at by some right-wing commentators, and a few hours later he decides to quit.
He does, and you could see that he was coming under attack from some of those very right-wing commentators. And you're saying that these two men are probably sad at this. I mean, there is a quote in that very story, because Farage was on GB News and said, not everyone got on with him, you know what, it's called politics. That wasn't saying, oh, I'm really sorry to see my colleague leave.
Oh, but he has also said that.
And also, when you have a party that has grown so quickly over such a period of time, and you have so many members who all have conflicting views, all right, they all might be on the right, but there's people coming out and saying things. I mean, to say something like to ban the burqa, to think it's like populist, and it is the Trumpification of our politics here, but then you're always going to get anyone who has joined Reform for the right reasons, and I have no idea what the right reasons are, you might be able to tell me, but if they have, who are going to see that there's times when you feel like you're being handcuffed, and I'm trying to be nice here, to a bunch of right-wing maniacs, and that is not
You're accusing me of being a right-wing
No, I am not accusing you. I am saying that there are people in that party who clearly look over their shoulder and say, do I want to be associated with this? This is not the direction we're going to go, where we thought that we were going in. And the fact is, it's almost like one step forward and two steps back. So they were doing so well in the polls. Yep. You know, they really have the Conservatives really under their foot at the minute, but you seem like they're almost determined to self-explode as well.
All right, guys, we'll have more time to talk about this. We're with each other until midnight, so we'll come back to it. Thanks very much, Alison Tim, for now. All right, still to come on the press preview, we'll have this story, which is on I think the front of the eye. Yeah, the government bans the bosses of several water firms from taking bonuses. We'll discuss whether that is the right move after this break.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
All alcohol products, not just wine, will have labels warning of liver disease and the link to fatal cancers.
Is it crazy? It's an industry worth around €14 billion a year. That's why Italy sees this Irish plan as such a threat. It's always instructive and occasionally entertaining to hear what Donald Trump has to say on the issue of Brexit.
She's got her own way of doing it, that's okay.
The job takes me to every corner of this island.
The rioting stemmed from a horrific daytime stabbing attack at a primary school in the city centre.
The scale of the rioting and the destruction it caused is pretty much unprecedented here in Dublin.
Jerry, any comments on the judge's decisions? Do you feel vindicated, Jerry? This is the end, the somewhat chaotic end of a 52-day trial.
Micheál Martin could be set to head back to government with the Taoiseach Simon Harris.
Are you confident that you can now return as Taoiseach?
I'm cautiously optimistic and excited.
A mystery press conference hastily called. Leo Varadkar strode out and didn't disappoint.
I am resigning as President and Leader of Fine Gael effective today.
The people here sometimes feel they're somewhat neglected by the Irish government, to the extent that this place is sometimes known as the Forgotten County.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks, but none have ever been found.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach.
This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Hello there and welcome back. You're watching the press preview with Tim and Alison. So let's carry straight on with some of the front pages. Guys, let's have a look at this one on the front of the eye. They're telling us that water bonuses are going to be banned because of anger about the sewage scandal. Alison.
And rightly so. If you were running a private company, you wouldn't get any bonus if your company was failing, and it's failing to meet its targets, especially on water pollution. And you'll not be surprised to know that this is not just a problem on this island, but on the island that I flew in from this morning. We are having a real serious problem in terms of the amount of sewage and pollution that's flowing into Lough Neagh, which is where most of the drinking water comes. And the problem with trying to reform that and change it is that you have government coming up against the farming community. Intensive farming is obviously the cause of a lot of that sewage. Farmers are complaining that these reforms will put them out of business, and so you have a fine line for government to...
Is the water company owned in privately in Northern Ireland as well? Excuse my ignorance.
Yes, yeah. And so you have an issue where this week the Minister for Agriculture has recommended a consultation. These came under fire from the farming community. He says it's not the right thing to do, but the fact is we have to leave this to the next generation, you know, to my children, to your children, to our grandchildren, and we're just destroying the environment.
Investment as well, or has been investment?
Well, I think it was that going for sort of growth strategy in terms of farming, and we've just got too much farming. I mean, I know nothing about farming. I'm a city girl, but there was a statistic this week that Northern Ireland is producing something like 4 or 5 times more food than we need to consume as part of that, and that is clearly adding to the pollution problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's for the public to see bonuses being given out to people running companies that every other week it feels like they're about to be taken into nationalisation. Yeah. The service isn't great, and there's the pollution problem. It's not been a good look, so I suppose they had to act.
And water bills rising quite fast, so people think they're paying a lot more money for a deteriorating service, and then they're seeing people get bonuses. So I think this is probably wise politics from the government, and I think on a temporary basis, I think it's the right policy. But look, one thing, I'm old enough to remember British Rail, for example, before it was privatised. And the trouble is, when you have any company dependent upon the state for its funding, that company, whether it's a railway or waterways, they're behind necessarily the NHS or schools for funding. And, you know, politicians work on the short-term basis. And so they're always going to give money to nurses and teachers, etc. first. So there is a good argument for private control where these water bodies and other organisations are held accountable for long-term investment. But there also has to be consequences. If you mess up, if you don't deliver that investment in an efficient way, you have to be punished. And so I'm a big, as I just tried to make clear, a supporter of private enterprise. But when the private enterprises fail, there has to be punishment. And I think on this occasion that punishment is justified.
And the punishment is justified. OK, well, that wraps that then. In agreement around the table. Let's move on to the next story. This is on the front of the Sun there. They're saying it's an exclusive. It's a great picture of the man who's going to be Sir David pretty soon. He's going to finally get his gong. Alison, you're chuckling away. Go on, what do you think?
Well, no, he's put in the hard work, hasn't he, to get it? I mean, some people, they have these titles bestowed on them and others have to do the hard work. I mean, I think that when he stood in line with all the people waiting to see the late Queen...
Didn't push in as well.
That pushed him, I think, ahead in the sort of public popularity. Stakes before that, I think it had a bit of a reputation problem, but they're clearly very good friends with the royal family. You'll not be surprised to know as an Irish woman, I don't really have much interest in these titles or the royal family, but I do think if someone does a lot of work for charity, as David Beckham does, and he wants one of these gongs, well, then why not?
And he did want one, didn't he?
Oh,
that's the thing, he wanted it, right?
There's those leaked emails where his language is less than royal, I think, or less than knightly. But look, I'm a Man United fan. I had a season ticket at Old Trafford for 7 years, and David Beckham and Cristiano Ronaldo are probably two men who've given me more happiness than any other men. But it could have been like a mixed blessing, though, now for a Man United supporter.
Well, I do think that
when you remember those...
Poshbacks is actually going to be a lady
now.
Exactly. Actually is posh.
He's posh.
Lady posh.
Lady posh. It's fantastic, isn't it? Well, I mean, congratulations to them. It's going to be announced, in the birthday honours list, I think.
Do you think he's aged well, Alison?
He does. He has.
You think he's a handsome man still?
Well, he's not an ugly man, let's face it.
That's the way to put it, not an ugly man. And on that bombshell, thanks, guys. You're going to stick around until midnight. Thank you so much for that. Now, coming up next on Sky News at 11, Elon Musk claims that Donald Trump appears in unreleased files related to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. We have asked the White House to respond. We'll have more on that story, the very public spat between these two men, and the rest of the day's news at the top of the next hour. Do stay with us. We'll be back after this short break.